Okay, so these bowls have been formed and they've been shaped a bit. They're not looking too bad. Remember, they're all pretty perfectly circular because we used one of those metal bowls to shape it a little bit. Not looking too bad this way either. But as we look at it, one of the areas that I noticed that's really poor is the bottoms. The bottoms are very uneven here, one to another, and even to themselves as far as like how wide these are. And so, that's where the craftsmanship comes in, is looking at even the parts that you wouldn't see at first. So obviously this is the part that you're going to see, but the whole thing should be craftsmanlike in nature. So what I'll do is I'll just take a sharp object like this point right here, and knowing that this rim is circular here, I'm just going to get my hand all set in some way. Let's see, just like that. Okay, so I'm using my pinky right here. On here is my gauge, and holding this down just like I would hold a pencil, and I can rotate it and I can scribe. And that's not going to change. See, this point doesn't move, and it's making a more true circle. That's always the same distance from the edge. So I can see where that's scribed that and giving me a line to where that circle should be. Okay, so while I have this here, I'm going to fit it just like this, and I'm going to move on to another one. So I haven't moved my hand at all, so it's in the same place as it was, as far as my pinky and this, same distance. So right there, right there. And I'll go ahead and do the same thing. It's very similar to when I was doing the rims, and this doesn't move, this rotates around, and when I'm doing it, I do it very, very gently, especially the first time around, just to make sure that that line is going to intersect itself. Let's see, we're coming right up on it, and yes, you see how the line came together? Now that I've got that line established, maybe I'll draw it again and get it just a bit deeper. Once I've got all four of these scribed like this, it's put this circle in the center, and it's pretty good. But just in the same way that we used the lid to make this perfectly round, I could grab something else that was perfectly round, putting it exactly in that central area as described by the lines that I've drawn, and use that as a template to make something absolutely round. There. Once again. Just like that. Now that I've got everything marked out, making a nice perfect circle that's an even distance from the edge, I'm going to start trimming it. Now I've got loop tools, and the loop tools do come in various shapes. I think that for this circular one will be better than the standard loop tool. Start carving that away, but be very gentle because the loop tools can really eat through the clay really very, very quickly. So just taking it just off that edge right there, turning it a little bit more, following that line. And it does take a little bit of practice and a little bit of restraint to be able to do that well. So here I've taken my first pass along the edge, and I've brought it right to that mark right there. So this is nice and circular, but I still want to take the time to maybe smooth this down a little bit. So here, very, very lightly grazing. I'm not putting any pressure at all, and that's going to help to sort of level it out prior to sanding. This clay right now is leather hard, which is perfect for this kind of trimming work. too wet for sanding still. But in between time, I think what I'll do is I still want to add a footer to this. So after I'm done trimming it, I will get it a little bit wet, bring the moisture content up a little bit, making the clay just a little bit softer again, and then adding the footer. Okay, so I'm going to start working on the footer now. I've already started rolling out a coil, and what I'd like to do ideally is roll out a coil that can serve for all my footers at once. So let's see, that's got it started. I'm going to go ahead, cut that into 2 equal pieces, because it's going to get hard to get that to be totally the same in a piece that long. And I want to try and make this a very, very thin coil. And it's going to take some practice, and we've got a project coming up that's just all about coils. Let's see, is this going to be long enough? So I've got one of the bowls right here. Now I've wet this already and started to score it. Is this going to be long enough to make 2? So measuring it right to there. Seems like it's just long enough, so that's fine. Put this one piece aside. And like I say, I've already started to score it. Score, score, score. A little touch of water. Because remember, this had gotten a little bit dry. Not too dry. It was always leather hard. I never let it get too dry. But we want to have it moist enough for connecting. Scoring the coil as well. And even scoring it a little bit after I put the water on makes that little slurry, that little bit of sort of just slimy, wet clay that acts like a glue. Okay, so those are going end to end now. Never overlapping, just end to end. And a little bit of a wiggle and a push, and a wiggle and a push, and a wiggle and a push. And looking from the top to make sure that it's nice and round. Go ahead there. Not looking too bad. Giving it a little bit of a press. Okay, and so then from there, I'll go ahead and I'll smooth and trim that in, maybe using one of my wooden tools. Now, I won't show you my putting this in all the way, and I won't show you it on all the other 4 that I'm making for this set, which kind of brings up a point. Hopefully you've been watching these tutorials all along. As we get more advanced, then I'll show you less step. In other words, we'll just assume that you've got a certain technique down. So I've tried to make them as consistent as possible, and so now, checking these, even the footers, being very, very close to being the same, I can now let them dry, and the next step will be to sand them out and then to glaze them.